Here's Rob Williams, the national sports editor of the Daily Hive and its Offside Sports Vertical, fresh from a trip to Orlando where he was at the FIFA Club World Cup. How are you, Rob?
Doing great, guys. Roberto, the football guy,
Yes.
returned once again.
And you saw Jonathan David's future club in
That's
Juventus. How about that?
That's right.
Juventus, Man City. That is a big boy matchup, Rob. Well done.
Was there
They
good
only bring me
sizzle?
in for the big ones.
What was the atmosphere like? Good. Was there a lot of sizzle to it, or did it feel like it was an exhibition game?
It wasn't quite full. No, I thought it was. Yeah. I mean, it didn't feel like I was in Europe watching the game necessarily,
Right,
but
right.
it was. There was definitely like tons of crowd support for both teams. The one that I actually thought that really had great atmosphere was Flamenco LAFC. There was.
Oh.
I mean, it was maybe 60% full at the stadium, and there was maybe 10 LAFC supporters there, but there was like 20,000 plus flamenco supporters that were standing the whole game, chanting, and we were
Wow.
kind of in the thick of that atmosphere, so that was really cool.
Well, the Juventus fan base worldwide. And I'm sure some of the Manchester fans would like a trip over to Florida. A little warmer,
Yeah.
than the 2-week summer in Britain. Okay, Rob. Well, we got plenty of Canucks news to dig into because we missed you last week. So let's have at her. First on Pius Suter and the deal he signed in St. Louis. What do you make of that?
Surprising. I thought it was a surprising last few days, actually, while I've been away. For the $4+ million, I think that was in line with what we'd been hearing, that the Canucks weren't maybe going to be prepared to go as high as what Suter would command, and that does seem a little, it does seem kind of on the high end. I know that the cap's going up, so we've got to change kind of our expectations on salaries, but just 2 years. I think that's the key. Just the 2-year term. I can swallow that number like that. So to me, when I saw the 2-year term, originally reported for $4 million, I thought, I think you do that deal and you find a way to clear cap space. Like you get rid of a winger or two that you have a surplus of wingers. I'm looking at like a projected lineup right now. They're fourth line wingers. I know we've been talking about will some of these Abbotsford guys come up and claim spots. Like where are they going to do it? You've got Drew O'Connor, Nils Höglander, Dakota Joshua, Kiefer Sherwood. Those are, for me, those are like your bottom 6 wingers. That's pretty good. But there's a gaping hole in the middle, and you've lost Suter. That hole gets even worse. So, I think that for me, that I was very surprised at the term.
So let's ask you the Whistler Golf Club poll question because it relates to one of the other news happenings we haven't talked to you about, Evander Kane. Evander, 1 year at $5.125 million, or Pius at 2 years at $4.125 million, plus you keep your 4th round pick. Which way you hedging?
I think you guys asked me about Kane like a few weeks ago, and I
Yes,
said,
we were
did.
prognosticating.
Yeah, we
yes.
did a show speculating on Kane when it was known he was going to be traded by the Oilers. And it's funny, Rob, because the market was 3-1 against that signing going in. Since it's happened and since Evander's
It's okay.
He's a lot more. It's the damnedest thing. Funny how that happens. Huh?
you can talk yourself into things, right? Like,
Yes.
It's like when
It's gonna work out.
It's like the morning of the first day of the season. You start going, you know what? Yeah, if this breaks their way, that breaks their way. You start looking on the other side. And look, I think that there's a chance that this could work out. You got him for 1 year. Kane, I know people focused on how he played in the Cup final, took a lot of bad penalties. Prior to that, I mean, he was having an excellent playoffs. Like he was doing, and he's the type of player that on the ice does things that the Canucks need, right? Like physicality, experience, brings some swagger to the
Shit
rink.
disturbing. Yes.
All of that. It can score goals. Great. But you've just, you're trying to be drama free and you've just brought in Mr. Drama. Like, what are you doing? Like that. For me, Kane, as I said before, Kane is a guy that the best fit for him is you bring him into an already established dressing room with strong leadership, and he just slots in like he did in Edmonton. He can't run the show, like McDavid and Draisaitl, they run the room in Edmonton, and you fall into place. Even for guys like Kane, even for guys like Corey Perry and the rest, right? So I think that's the best spot for a guy like Kane. Is Vancouver the right spot? Has he grown up in Edmonton as some have said? I guess we're going to find out. But that's one I wouldn't have risked it. I think it can work. It might work.
So is that your vote?
Yeah.
Kane over Suter?
Well,
No, I wouldn't. Because I think you've got this. I guess I understand the thinking, because you don't want to just run it back. You want to bring someone in. If you bring in Kane, it can work. Like, there's a bit of a boom bust opportunity there.
Mm-hmm.
So it's I think a calculated risk on the part of the Canucks. But I mean, I guess it remains to be seen. Like, I mean, I wouldn't have touched Kane. So I have to vote Suter. With that said, I don't view Suter as a credible second line center. I mean, I think he's a third line center, but he brings enough intangibles to the table that I think that's a valuable player, especially for, you overpay for him, I think, by going over $4 million, but not by much. And you get him on a 2-year deal. That's fine, right? Like, is he a second line center? I think he's I think he's a 3C, but you don't have a 2C right now, right? And so I think you go with him, and you bring him and Hedel in, and maybe one of them rises to the top. You kind of get it on the aggregate that way. If you find a legit 2C, you can move Suter to the wing. And one of the biggest keys is he was so good with Bluger on the PK. Now you've got a bit of a question mark on your PK,
Huge.
and that's that's a risk now going into the season.
What are they going to do?
It's not just second, third line center, right? Like this is a multi-layered miss for the Canucks, because you are now, here's your center ice equation. Elias has to bounce back. Hedel has to stay healthy. Ratu or Bluger has to fill third line center. You're susceptible to injury or underperformance in any of those spots, and you're looking for another primary penalty killer for the third best unit in the league, minus P.O. Suter. So, I just look at all of those potential issues now on one side of the fence that Suter would have helped solve many of them.
Okay, so Robin, with all that said, well run down there by Matt. Are they done here on the forward lines, or do they shake it up with the trade of some of those bodies that you talked about? And I've been critical already of this today, like Höglander, O'Connor. Like, again, why did O'Connor get that money? You'll have to explain that one to me like I'm 5. Dakota Joshua, like those 3 guys in particular are jumping off the page as, I don't want to be disrespectful and saying colossal waste of money, but they've got to prove that they are worth that money again.
Yeah, you're spending too much money on the wings and not enough in the middle right now, right? And I think that most good teams are built up the middle. You can kind of get by with a AHL call up on a wing and kind of fill in that spot with a couple of other guys.
Least amount of duty is on the wing, so you can get
Exactly.
That's the easiest job. Yeah,
it's much harder to do that by having an AHL call up in the middle of the ice, right? There's so many potential problems that can occur when you do that. Are they done? That's the one part here where I'm not ready to just completely pan them for their off season, because I don't think that they're done. I mean, we know that they're going to try to make a trade. Does Marco Rossi end up here still? We'll see, right? And what other moves could be made? I don't think Patrick Allvin's going to go 2.5 months without making a trade. So, but we'll see, right? And that's always that was always the issue, for the Canucks this offseason, is they're not flush with prospects and picks, because they've made those mortgaging the future deals a bunch of times, even in just the last couple of years. So you don't have that, you already made the Elias Lindholm trade. So you don't have that first round pick prospect that you can move in a deal now. So that's why I was always sort of like, I know we've been talking about like, okay, trading that first round pick, and I was always like, oh, like I'm open to it, and I'm open to trading the prospects on D, but I'm not jumping at it because I just think like, okay, you got to be a little careful here with the moves you make. But yeah, barring a trade, it does look like they're going to go into next season. It's kind of like last season. They went in with, okay, you've got a lot of questions on D, looking very thin back there. You have Myers and Susie and no safety net, and now they've got Petey, Hedel, Ratty, Bluger, and no safety net. We'll see. It blew up in their face last year, and they're hoping it's not going to next season.
I got to give you a ton of credit, Rob Williams, because when the trade deadline came and went, and Brock Besser was still a Vancouver Canuck, and everybody was screaming, I can't believe they managed the asset this way. He could have fetched you this, that, or the other thing. You were firm, sir. No. Bring back Brock Besser. You need goals. He scores goals. Don't overthink this. This is simple. Re-sign Brock Besser. Take a bow.
I just always thought it was going to be really difficult to replace him, right? Like everyone, it's easy to sit back in April and go, okay, you can sign Sam Bennett, you can sign Nikolai Ehlers, you can sign, pick your UFAs. Well, how many of those guys made it to unrestricted free agency? Far fewer than I thought. I mean, it was unreal how many guys were off the board by the time we got to July 1. But then the second part is you got to get that guy to want to come to Vancouver, right? And the best available free agent that wanted to come to Vancouver was Brock Besser, and the second best was Suter, right? So re-sign your guys and figure out another way to do it, right? Like I kind of feel like, okay, what if you re-sign Besser and you trade Garland? Now you've got some assets, right? If you just let Besser walk, I don't know how you get better by letting your best goal scorer walk out the door. I don't know how you score more goals if you just let him walk. Now the problem I envisioned was that all these GMs are going to have extra cap space, and just the prices are going to be just so out of this world crazy. I don't think that really fully came to fruition. It did not. The part that I didn't envision was that just they would all get re-signed and that nobody would get to July 1. So yeah, I mean, you look at Besser's AAV, under 8. I don't know what we thought it was going to be, but that seems palatable. But it's, the risk is you sign him for 7 years. Like, how does he age? What does he look like at age 33, 34, 35? But I think there's risk in bringing in a new guy and giving him $7 million, right? So I think the devil versus the devil you don't know. I think Besser brings a lot of good things. Like, he doesn't make you faster, but he's he provides a lot of things, scores goals, good defensively, great in the room, popular guy with that. Maybe he keeps the vibes up enough for Quinn Hughes to want to come back. But yeah, to me, it never made sense why they were almost like burning that bridge. And they're lucky that Besser, wasn't just so insulted and said, screw you guys, and I'm heading out. I think a lot of other players would have been that way, and they would have been too late to bring him back. But Besser just clearly, he wanted to be in Vancouver, so they lucked out.
Yep.
Is it reasonable to suggest they're a playoff team? Or en route to being a playoff team, even if you reserve judgment because you think there's one more move coming? Is it reasonable to suggest they will be a playoff team?
I don't know if I'd put the house on it or anything like that, but I think there's definitely a path to them being a playoff team. You look at how many things went wrong for them last year. Will that happen again this year? Elias Pettersson was the third line center for them last year. That's how he performed. Does he come back to being a credible first line center as he has been throughout most of his career? I think he does. I think they're banking on Petey bouncing back. I mean, this franchise needs him to bounce back. So I think he will. So that right there is a huge upgrade over last season. Thatcher Demko, I mean, that was the most injury-riddled, disappointing season of his career. He doesn't even have to be a Vezina goalie for you to improve dramatically. He just needs to be, a credible starting goalie, top 15 in the league kind of thing. And that's a huge improvement right there as well. So those two moves, their defense is improved. They're strong on the wings. They're hoping in the middle. I think it's not a great spot to have a question mark in center ice, but I think that you've got a lot of things there. And I haven't even mentioned the Petey Miller drama being a thing of the past now. All of those things put together, you can see a path for them. They didn't miss the playoffs by that much last season. I think there's definitely a chance they could make it. I consider them a bubble team. I think they'd be right on the bubble to make the playoffs.
I think that is absolutely fair. And as we've talked about here for the last 48 hours, Rob, that can't be the aspiration, right? If you want to look at it, as Blake said, crawl before you walk before you run, fair enough. But of course, if they're walking this year, they were running a couple of years ago. And eventually you do actually have to have an eye towards winning the big prize and building your team accordingly, as opposed to what can we do to patch the dam and get to the playoffs.
You want to stay on your feet every year, and they haven't been able to do that.
There you go.
Yes.
Very well put, based on your analogy. Great to have you back. Thank you for this. Until next week.
Good to be back. Thanks, guys.